I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for our third in our series of cyber lectures. I'd like to introduce Dr. Scott Leckman to all of you. Dr. Leckman is a general surgeon in private practice in Salt Lake City. He is an adjunct assistant professor at the University of Utah's Center for Global Surgery, and he's a member of the Committee of Global Engagement for Operation Giving Back, which is a program run by the American College of Surgeons. He's the chairperson of the Domestic Volunteerism Subcommittee, and in that role, he has done amazing support of our work in Puerto Rico. He was one of the first volunteer surgeons to come down to Puerto Rico to provide free surgical care to patients who are uninsured. And he's been a real stalwart in supporting us with setting up this lecture series. So we'd like to acknowledge him for that and thank him for that. Dr. Leckman went to undergrad at Stanford University and also received a master's degree there. And he received his doctorate of medicine and did his surgical training at the University of Utah. The University of Utah School of Medicine Alumni Association named him their 2016 Distinguished Humanitarian. In 2001, Dr. Leckman helped initiate the Health Access Project, which was a program whose mission was to improve access and coordinate healthcare for low-income uninsured individuals in Salt Lake County. As a result, more than 600 physicians and 9 hospitals are providing free care to qualified individuals, which has totaled so far more than $25 million in donated healthcare. In 2014, in recognition of this effort, he received the Surgical Volunteerism Award from the American College of Surgeons. Dr. Leckman has a lot of experience serving as a volunteer surgeon. He's worked as a civilian surgeon with Project Hope, in conjunction with the U.S. Navy, operated on the U.S. Ship Mercy after the tsunami in Indonesia. He's worked in Mississippi after Katrina and in Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, as well as in Latin America. He's worked with Hernia International and has taught local surgeons how to do hernia repair using mosquito netting for mesh. And he's also worked in Nigeria, Peru, Cambodia, Ecuador, India, Bangladesh, Liberia, Kenya, and Thailand. In addition, he's taught laparoscopic surgery to surgeons in Mongolia. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Dr. Scott Leckman, and we look forward to hearing your talk about surgical volunteerism. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Sandy. And it sounds like you just gave my talk. Thanks very much. And before I forget it, I want to tell all you medical students out there that our subcommittee and our Jefe, Germa, is very interested in educating program directors about the barriers to you guys getting into residency programs on the mainland. So that is on our radar screen. I'm going to share several quotations with you, and I love quotations because they make me think about things in a different way that can be very helpful. And this first one is from Apollo astronaut Rusty Schweickart. "We aren't passengers on Spaceship Earth, we're the crew. We're not residents, we're citizens. The difference in both cases is responsibility." I love this. And when you figure out that you're not a resident, but that you're part of the crew, new opportunities just open up for you. Now, when I was 11 years old, this issue of Life magazine was delivered to my house. And on the cover is Albert Schweitzer. And I don't expect you to know who this guy is. He's quite famous to people my age and older. But he was born in Alsace, right on the border between France and Germany, and he was just an all-star. He was a theologian. He was an expert organist. He was a writer. He won a Nobel Peace Prize. And at age 30, he decided that the best way he could serve humanity was to become a doctor. So he went to medical school. And after medical school, he opened up a hospital in French West Africa. And I remember going through the pages and reading the article, and Life magazine was famous for big color pictures. And I just watched, saw these pictures of him seeing people in his clinic and taking care of them. And that had a big impact to me at age 11. So Albert Schweitzer, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. Now, 2 weeks ago when Sandy spoke, she shared some of her personal health challenges. And I thought that really added to her talk. So I decided to do the same thing. So in March, I had my first seizure ever. And this is what my head did. I put a hole in the wall. And then we got some scans. And there on the right is the preoperative scan. And you can see an enhancing mass there on the right. And the scan on the left is the post-op. So the radiologist diagnosed a benign hemangioma. And so I had that taken out. So that's my brain on the right and my tumor on the left. And because this was overlying my speech center, for the first 5 weeks, I could not carry on a conversation. And you don't miss things, including people, until they're not around anymore. So I'm really happy to be able to talk to you today. Now, months later, we figured out that the dural patch and the bone flap had gotten infected. So they needed to be taken out. And so now I have this deformity in my skull, and I have to wait 6 months to get that fixed. My PICC line just came out after 9 weeks of antibiotics. My PICC line came out on Friday, and I'm very happy to not have a PICC line. And it's not all downside. I mean, many of you on this call right now have had many worse things than this. I mean, this is just a bump in the road. But I should say that social distancing is less of a problem now. And when I was a kid, my mom would continuously tell me, "What's wrong with you? Do you have a hole in your head?" And I've finally proven her right. Now, I tell people, what's going on when they'll listen. And I told one of my friends who's a surgeon in Thailand about my experience. And she reacted completely different. She's Buddhist. So she reacted differently than, she asked me a question that no one else had asked me. And that was, what did you learn from this? And I had an answer right away. What I learned is that I loved all the experiences of my life, including the bad ones. I loved them, and which is kind of strange when you think about it. But all of these have contributed to who I am today, especially the bad ones. And I kind of remember, reminds me of a saying we have in surgery: good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And so it turns out that this is not an original thought. Here, I thought I was being brilliant, but no, it's thousands of years old. And in Latin, it's called amor fati, love your fate. So you might look that up and ponder that. Now I'm going to talk about volunteerism, and I'm going to talk about advocacy. And to kind of give you a feel for how they're different, I'm going to give you two parables. And the first one is probably one you've already heard of. And this is starfish on the beach. So there's a fellow that gets up early, goes down to the beach to walk on the beach, and there it's just covered with starfish. And he sees a guy way off in the distance, and it looks like he's dancing. And so he walks down on down the beach, and he tries to avoid stepping on any of these starfish. And as he gets closer, he sees that what the guy's doing is picking up starfish and throwing them back in the ocean. So he comes upon this guy and he says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, the sun's coming up, and all these starfish are going to die if we don't get them back in the water because the tide's going out." And the first guy says, "Well, you can't make a difference here. There's thousands of starfish." And the second guy picks up a starfish and says, "Well, it's going to make a difference to this one." And he throws it back in the ocean. Okay, that's the first parable. And that's analogous to volunteerism. The second one is babies in the river. And you may not have heard of this one, but the story here goes, a group of friends, they're up for a picnic. They go to the side of the river, put out their blanket, and they start having lunch, and they've got a bottle of wine, having a good time. All of a sudden, one of them notices there's a baby drowning in the river. So one of them jumps in the water and saves the baby and rescues it. And then there's another baby, and another one jumps in, and then there's another baby, and all these babies are coming down, and all the friends are jumping into the water. And now two of them start walking upstream, and their friends in the water say, "Yeah, where are you going? You got to help us here." And they say, "Well, I'm going upstream to find out who's throwing these babies in the river and stop them." And this is analogous to advocacy. Volunteering. Okay. So day after Christmas, 2004, at dawn, there's a 9.0 earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. Largest earthquake in 40 years, more powerful than all earthquakes in the last 5 years combined. This triggers one of the worst natural disasters ever. The tsunami created by the quake travels at more than 500 miles per hour and hits Sumatra 15 minutes later. Aceh province, this is in Indonesia, more than 160,000 people dead. 3/4 of the deaths from the tsunami were here. More than 400,000 people homeless. So the United States responded. initially with an aircraft carrier, Abraham Lincoln, they brought in blankets and water and things like that. George Bush decides to mobilize the U.S. Navy ship Mercy, which is a hospital ship. And for the first time, the Navy partners with a non-governmental organization, Project Hope. I get an email from the American College of Surgeons saying they're looking, Project Hope is looking for general surgeons. I read this email and it took me about 5 minutes to decide this is what I want to do. And I'm glad I didn't take 1 minute longer because I got picked, and if I'd waited any longer, I would have been too late. So the Mercy, it's one of 2 hospital ships. It's amazing. There on the top left, you've got the only way for patients to come on board was by helicopter. And there's on top of the ship, there was a landing pad for the helicopter. We had an ICU. We had a CT scanner. So we had the only CT scanner in Aceh province. And the bunks were triple bunks. So it was like sleeping in a coffin. And there were some nights I just could not get myself to crawl in there. There were about 300 Navy medical personnel and 100 civilian volunteers, doctors and nurses. And we took care of about 50 inpatients who brought a family member with them. And here I am with a couple of surgeons. The one on the left is a pediatric surgeon, and the one on the right is the head of surgical services on the Mercy. He's a vascular surgeon. And one day on rounds, when we were rounding, he said this to me: "It's nice to show people that we can do more than bomb them." The Indonesian people were just so amazing, so grateful. Now the Indonesians knew we were there. They could see us offshore. Their press people would come on board and check out what we were doing. So their media was reporting everything. And after I served on the ship for the second of 2 1-month rotations. And on the last day, we were taking off to go back to Singapore. And these are our translators that were hired by the Navy. And on the right there is a woman named Tamalia. And we had a meeting, the civilians and the Navy people, kind of lessons learned, what we could have done better if we were going to do this ever again. And she asked if she could say a few words. So she got up and said the following: "To me, you're very special and have enormous empathy toward the people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I think volunteering for this. So it's really been a privilege for all of us and me to come and translate for you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but since the tsunami, the aid the Americans have given, starting with the helicopters bringing in the food, the newspapers, when I left Jakarta, there were saying there was a 70% change in Indonesian public opinion toward the Americans. We see these big war machines being used to help people to bring aid. You were first greeted with suspicion and then puzzlement and then great fondness. The other thing I want to convey this being the last day, nearly all the patients were saying how grateful they were and that we really couldn't thank you enough. And there's nothing that we could give to you to repay your kindness and your care. And it will have to be up to God who repays you. And Aceh is one of the most religious spaces in Indonesia and is called the Miranda Mecca, the room just before you get into the most holy room. So it means a lot to say that here. And you know, there's another thing I would like to say. You've done healing of the body, but many of you might not be aware that the people that you've been treating, many of them are really among the poorest people. You know, they eat chicken once a year, or maybe they get fish twice a week. That's good. Usually it's just a bowl of rice and chili peppers or hot spinach. And in this area, they've been in conflict for many years. And you know, they're just stuck in between. The army burns their houses and extorts them. Then the separatists kidnap them and extort them and burn their houses. And they're just caught in the crossfire. And you know, they don't have much value. And when people like that go to the hospital for treatment, they have to wait. Not just a couple of hours, but maybe a couple of days. And they're not treated with any respect. And then they come in here. They see you being so rich and powerful. And you treat them with such gentleness and so much courtesy and so much kindness that it has done enormous things for their sense of self-worth, and they feel valuable. In many cases, you'll see people who've lost their leg and they're leaving and smiling, and they have such a sense of their self-worth. And I don't know how we can ever thank you. And in Indonesian, we say terima kasih, which literally means accept love. Because what is it to thank someone? Is it to give a bit of love? Please do accept our love. Thank you. So the Navy, seeing that this really improved relations with the largest Muslim country in the world, decided that they would try to do more. So they started doing, rather than waiting for disaster, started doing missions both in the Pacific and in Latin America. And again, one thing leads to another. And since I was part of that first mission, I got to be part of other missions. So I got to serve again as a civilian on the Peleliu and got to operate in Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, and also in Costa Rica and El Salvador. And as Sandy mentioned, I got to teach laparoscopic cholecystectomy in Mongolia. So you just become aware of opportunities, and you go for it. Nigeria, you know, again, this is because of Operation Giving Back. I looked on their website, saw Hernia International. I emailed them. They had an opening, and boom, I'm in Nigeria teaching hernia repairs. And I've done 9 of those, 9 different countries, one a year since. And it's mostly with a group of us. I'm the only American. Most of the other ones are from different countries in the EU. And we just have the most fabulous time. Now in Nigeria, they were worried that we'd get kidnapped. And so we got 24/7 police guards. And here I am teaching young doctors in Thailand. This is Ecuador. Now back to the mainland, back home, we've got our own problems. And the biggest problem I have is having a patient come into my office with a bad problem and no health insurance. I'm willing to give my services for free, but it's hard to find, a facility that's willing to do so. So now I said before, one thing leads to another. This woman, she's a social worker, Tanya Kale. She shows up in my office. This ultimately leads to me talking to you this evening. So she comes and she tells me that, boy, in North Carolina, there's a county there where the doctors and the hospital, the two hospitals there, have come up with a program to give low-income, uninsured people comprehensive health care. And so on my own dime, I say, sure. So I go there, check out the program, and attempt to bring it back to my Salt Lake County. Albert Schweitzer, do something wonderful, people may imitate it. So the doctors in North Carolina, Asheville, did something wonderful, and I'm there to imitate it. So we create what's called the Health Access Project in Salt Lake County. We target low-income, uninsured people in Salt Lake County. We have people interested in this that approach the hospitals. I go around and create interest in doctors. I do meet with hospital CEOs and the county council and go to the medical staff meetings. And now I got the first 300 or so physicians signed up, and the rest have come without me lifting a finger. We've got other providers. We've got 9 hospitals, private and public clinics, and 2 private labs willing to do this stuff for free. We have an office. We have a project director. And the main expense are the case managers. So far, we've treated over 17,000 patients, $25 million in donated care by the hospitals and the physicians, 35,000 appointments, and almost 10,000 visits that needed interpretation. So because of that, the American College of Surgeons gave me an award, and that led to me being asked to be on this committee, the OGB Global Engagement Committee. That's how I got to meet Sandra, and that's how I got invited to talk to you tonight. And that's how I got to meet Jody. That's how I got to come to Puerto Rico and help uninsured people there. So one thing leads to another. Okay, former Senator Mark Hatfield. We stand by as children starve by the millions because we lack the will to eliminate hunger. Yet we had the will to develop missiles capable of flying over the polar cap and landing within a few hundred feet of their target. This is not an ovation. It is a profound distortion of humanity's purpose on earth. Wow. Okay, the advocacy. So this is going upstream to stop whoever's throwing those babies in the river. Now, I'd like to tell you a true story about how I became the type of person who would follow an old man into the men's bathroom in hopes of changing the world. But before that, a confession. Sometimes I'll see a need to take an action to make the world a little bit better, and I don't do it. And I use the excuse, it just wouldn't matter. And whenever I catch myself doing that, I remember these words of Gandhi. It's the action, not the fruit of the action that's important. It may not be in your power, it may not be in your time that there'll be any fruit, but that doesn't mean you stop doing the right thing. You may never know what results come from your action, but if you do nothing, there'll be no result. In 1992, I went with a group of volunteers to visit Professor Muhammad Yunus and his Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. Believe it or not, that's me on the right and Yunus on the left. Our group called Results is an advocacy group that teaches people to use their voices to help change policies that make hunger persist. Now, Yunus did something extraordinary. He created a bank that makes loans exclusively to people living in poverty. His very first loan was to a woman named Sophia Khatun. She made bamboo stools, beautiful product. He asked her, how much do you make? And she said 2 cents per day. How is that possible? She didn't have the money to buy the bamboo. Thus, she was dependent on a trader to give her the bamboo in exchange for the finished product at a price he fixed, thus 2 cents a day. So Eunice loans her $6. So now she can buy her own bamboo, sell the product herself at the market. Her income immediately goes from 2 cents a day to $1.25 a day. Now she's able to feed her daughter 3 meals a day instead of 1. She's able to send her to school before she couldn't. And now she's able to put a tin roof on her house to keep the rain out. All that was not happening for lack of a $6 loan. Eunice was doing something unheard of, making very tiny loans to poor illiterate women with no collateral and getting a 98% repayment rate on time with interest. All this based on trust. He called these tiny loans microcredit. We arrive in Dhaka, we meet with Eunice, and then we go out in 2s and 3s to villages throughout Bangladesh. There I am on the left, and on the right is a reporter for the Washington Post that we invited to come with us. Her name is Molly Moore. Now we go to the village, we meet with the bank workers, we learn how the bank works. We go with the workers to meet the borrowers. And before we leave Bangladesh, Molly Moore's article about Eunice and the Grameen Bank appears on the front page of the Washington Post. Now, like Sophia Khatun, every single one of these women has an incredible story of the impact these tiny loans have on these families living in poverty. I just knew that this thing, microcredit, was going to be a big deal. Now, on our way home, our first stop is in Karachi, Pakistan. And waiting for the next flight, I wander around the airport and I see a newsstand. And I'm looking at magazines and newspapers they have there. And I look up, and standing there with the Sunday New York Times under his arm is Robert McNamara. Now, I don't expect you to know that name, but he was the Secretary of Defense for Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. And later was the president of the World Bank. Without thinking, I just blurt out, "You're Robert McNamara." And he acknowledges this with a smile. And we chat for a minute, and then he's gone. And I'm upset with myself because I missed this chance to tell him about Eunice and what he's up to with the Grameen Bank. Turns out he's on the same flight as I am. So on the flight, I start practicing a 2-minute laser talk about Eunice and the Grameen Bank in hopes of getting another chance to meet or to talk to McNamara about this. Because you see, McNamara is a very powerful, influential, well-connected person. If so inspired, he could make things happen. So I practice and my talk, and then this is back in 1992. The plane lands in Brussels, and they let us out while they refuel. I hurry up ahead trying to find McNamara, and I noticed him going into the men's bathroom. So I hurry in following him. I maneuver my way so that I'm at the urinal next to his. And I engage with him verbally. And luckily, because of his age, I was able to get through my whole 2-minute talk. And he tells me, I think I've read something about this. And I'm sure it's that article from Molly Moore. On that day, I did my job as a citizen. I followed an old man into the men's bathroom in hopes of changing the world. Now, believe me, I wasn't always like this. Let me tell you how I became this type of person. So the date was September 30th, 1985. And I was a surgery resident at the University of Utah. And I was invited to a meeting. And for some reason, I went to this meeting rather than going home and getting some sleep. So there were 2 people from Los Angeles representing the advocacy group Results. And at that meeting, I learned there are 40,000 children dying daily from preventable diseases, preventable causes, preventable. They were dying for lack of an immunization, for lack of 2 cents worth of vitamin A to be given over a year. They were dying because mothers didn't know the importance of breastfeeding. Simple stuff. Now, this night was an epiphany for me. I'm embarrassed by my own thinking, which before the meeting went something like this. If there was a big problem that had a solution, somebody would take care of it. Or somebody rich or our political leaders. But what I came to realize was, no, that's not the way the world works. Things happen when a group of people organize and make it good politics to make things happen. Also this night, I find out there are things that I can do to help end this tragedy. I can learn the issues. I can write letters to the editor of my local paper. I can uh, write letters to my congressman. I could meet with my congressman. I could meet with editorial writers. All of these things seemed, I could see myself doing these things, and they actually seemed like fun. So I could no longer stand on the sidelines hoping somebody else will take care of it. It's up to me. So at the end of the meeting, we have a new group of results in Salt Lake City, and I'm the group leader. Now, our very first campaign is to increase the amount of funding in our foreign aid that goes to something called the Child Survival Fund. We wanted to, it just was just created the year before. We wanted to increase the amount of money from 25 million to 75 million. So we met with our members of Congress. We met with both of our senators requesting this. We met with the editorial writers at both papers in Salt Lake City. They wrote beautiful editorials. They would not have known about this had we not gone to them, but they wrote editorials in support. We took those editorials, and while we worked on our congressional delegation, results volunteers throughout the country worked on theirs. Editorials would be sent in 4 or 5 at a time to policymakers in Washington. And I remember the response from one of our senator's aides. He said, "Forget it. It's not going to happen. There is no money." So in that year, results volunteers throughout in 60 cities in the US saw the amount of money appropriated for the Child Survival Fund go from 25 million to 75 million. We've lobbied Congress to increase this amount of money most every year, and other countries have followed our lead. The account is now called the Maternal and Child Health Account, and is now funded at more than $800 million a year. So what's happened since? Well, preventable child deaths have dropped from 40,000 a day to less than 15,000 a day. And public health experts tell us that we can bring this down to virtually zero by 2035. This is the best news that nobody's heard about. But I choose to be optimistic about our future. I believe that on occasion, the world can get its act together. And this next story is about one of those times. I've become an activist. Now, Gavi, created in the year 2000, helps poor countries immunize their kids. And since they were created, they've immunized 440 million children, saving 6 million young lives. In July of 2014, the CEO of Gavi came to Results and shared their plan of immunizing another 300 million children, which would cost $7.5 billion. He asked for our help in raising that money. He tells us that there's going to be a pledging conference in Berlin in January of 2015, at which countries will make commitments. Those of us in the United States want a big pledge from the Obama administration, a pledge that will make a difference over 4 years. And we're told by our contacts in the White House that don't ask for $1 billion because there's just no money. So we decided to ask for $1 billion. And so we go out and we meet with their members of Congress. We write letters to the editor. With the help of a Gates grant, we bring in experts from low-income countries to the US to visit cities and tell their story. So in Salt Lake City, we hosted a pediatrician from Tanzania, and we take them down to the local newspaper to meet with their editorial board. And he tells the story about his national hospital in Dar es Salaam. They have a ward there for just kids with diarrhea. They have 3 kids per bed, and they have mattresses on the floor. They're packed all the time. Gavi comes in, helps Tanzania immunize kids with the rotavirus vaccine. 1 year later, the ward is empty. And when they do get a kid in there, it's because he didn't get the vaccine. So the editorial writers at the paper, they write an editorial of support for this plan for Gavi. And we get 200 pieces of media throughout the country generated. We get a quarter of Congress to write Obama a letter that they co-sign or one of their own. Okay, and then the time comes for the pledging conference in Berlin. And Canada and the UK come in with big pledges. And then our representative, Ross Shaw, the director of USAID, gives the US pledge, and it's $1 billion. People start pulling out their pieces of paper and pens, and they start, well, maybe we can reach the $7.5 billion. The Gates Foundation, they end up pledging more than they had planned. Angela Merkel, the host of the pledging conference, Chancellor of Germany, she pledges more than she had planned. And when all the pledges were done, the pledges totaled $7.54 billion. So the world can get its act together on occasion. Alex Steffen, optimism is a political act. Those who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy for us to think nothing is going to get any better. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. In 2006, Muhammad Yunus wins the Nobel Peace Prize. He asked me to be there. Here I am with Yunus at the Nobel banquet. I think this was after the first 2 glasses of champagne. This was a peak experience for me. It had been 30 years since Yunus gave that very first loan till winning the Nobel Peace Prize. I personally got to see conventional wisdom change from, are you crazy? Are you stupid? You can't loan poor, illiterate women with no collateral loans and expect to get it back, to, of course this works. Today, more than 300 million families in the world have a microloan. Oh, and remember Robert McNamara? In preparation for the Microcredit Summit, which we created to help spread Yunus's idea throughout the world, we had 2 preparatory meetings that I was involved in. And at the second of these meetings, I looked out in the audience, and there was Robert McNamara. You may never know what results come from your action, but if you do nothing, there will be no result. So find a problem that you're passionate about. Could be poverty, could be climate change, healthcare in Puerto Rico, or around the world. Find like-minded people, organize, and take action. Things don't get better without activists. In the words of the American poet Wallace Stevens, after the final no, there comes a yes. And on that yes, the future of the world hangs. This has been the way of all the great movements of the past. There was a no, there was a no, another no, another no, and then a yes. And the world was different. The only thing stopping you from changing the world is you. So become the kind of person who would follow somebody into the bathroom in hopes of changing the world. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Scott, that was a wonderful talk. I really appreciate it. It moved me. I really, really found it to be fantastic, and hopefully everyone else on the call feels the same way. Let's open up the floor to questions. They can either be verbal, where you unmute yourselves and ask, or you can submit questions via the chat function.
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for all your support with the program and with me. And I want to know, how do you manage to like specifically like your time management part of like being a surgeon in a private practice in a hospital, doing volunteerism, being an advocate and an activist? Because I feel like I will be that type of surgeon. Like if I want to pursue a surgery, that I would like to be involved in a lot of advocacy initiatives. So how do you manage your time, like between your practice and all other initiatives you want to be part of?
You know, if you care about something, you'll find the time. Let me let me give you one more quote. I didn't think I had time, but I'm going to throw it in here now. And this, let's see here. Okay, here it goes. Okay, this is George Bernard Shaw. And, oh, brother. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Okay. This is the true joy in life, being used for a purpose recognized as a mighty one. Being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I'm of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. And as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. I like that feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. Do you know people like that? Yes. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, yeah. I think like sometimes, and I think it's happened more if you're a woman, right? Like they ask, and I did ask this last cyber speaker series to Dr. Freewald, that sometimes you want to do a lot of things that a man does, but because you're a human, right? A woman, sorry, they like start asking questions like how you're gonna manage your time to do certain type of things. So being able to do it, and wanting to do things and being criticized for it, I think this happens in every profession, right? But yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to know, how did you manage all of these things, that it's not only being a surgeon, it's being a citizen and being an advocate for the things you really care about. But yeah, it helped. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of people say to themselves, "Oh, I'll wait until I retire." Um, don't wait till you retire, because most people don't want you after you've retired. As far as volunteering your skills, um, and yeah, I don't wait.
Dr. Leckman,
Yes.
hi. Thank you guys.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for the talk. That was spectacular. I kind of have a compound question. Problem I have, I just have too many questions. The first one kind of comes with what you just said, like don't wait to retired. But I'm a medical student, so guess like, how do I not wait to? How can I help now? And that's kind of like the first question. Other than like a educating myself, how do I since the beginning purposely focus a career that is for advocacy, and it's purposeful in my decisions were like that. And meanwhile, if there's not a lot or little that I can do, how do I stay optimistic about seeing things and not being able to help, like even, even with the COVID thing that just happened, it's like I for me as a medical student was like, I'm 4 years late. I can't help. I can't do anything. So yeah, thank you.
Uh, yes. I think just have your antenna up. Um, and if you pay attention, you'll see opportunities. Now, of course, you're a medical student, and uh, that's number one. That has to be number one. But yeah, just be aware. There are lots of needs in Puerto Rico. So I, uh, I think Albert Schweitzer had another great quote about if you need to find, something to help with, um, just turn to the person next to you because they need help. I hope that's helpful. And remember, I have a hole in my head. Okay.
I think Omar Rovira had a question because I just unmute him.
Yeah. Hey, there's Leckman, how you doing?
Good.
I don't have any question in particular. First of all, I want to congratulate you. Such an inspiring talk. But I had the opportunity to share the OR with you in the Operation Give Back.
Oh, yes.
Remember me?
Yes, I do. I do. Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to say hi.
Is that fellow still alive, do you think?
Uh, the program?
No, the patient.
Hope so. I think.
Yes,
I didn't
yeah.
have the opportunity to see him in the post-op, but I'm
Yes,
sure he is.
yeah. Last I knew, he was. Yes.
All right.
We like that. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
Dr. Leckman.
Yes.
How are you? Dr.
I'm
Martinez
great.
here.
Yes.
So I wanted to join the conversation. I wanted to say two things. First, to Cayetana, who asked about, how do you do with regards of time management, and what if people, kind of judge you about how you use your time, etc. I have the one advice I will give anybody is to practice stoicism, because when you learn about the Stoic philosophy, you will learn how to concentrate on your well-being and the well-being of others, regardless of what anybody thinks. And I think that's one thing important that has helped me move forward and never care for too much about what people say, because it's correct, the fact that every time you have a great idea or you're doing something that might help a lot of people, you will have more resistance than supporters. So don't worry about what people think or say. And then the other girl, that the medical student who was asking about volunteer, the his your comment about look next door or the person next to you. Well, that's so true. Because we have so much people that are in need everywhere, and all you have to do is to work with the ones that are closer to you, and then you will find a lot of other people that might, and the other thing is that keep your eyes open, because a lot of time opportunities will show up and you don't even realize it. They're right there in front of you, and then people talk about it. They're talking about it, and you don't realize it. So if you want to participate, just keep your eyes open for those clues where things are starting and things are happening. Like today. If you were not here, you will not hear about Dr. Scott endeavors and how he's done volunteerism. So keep your eyes open and participate. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Leckman. I hope you're well.
Hi.
Thank you for tonight, first of all. I wanted to ask you, or anyone out there who has been through medical school, as a first year, I'm wondering more of like, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of your career to keep yourself open to these experiences, so you don't just lock yourself up in studying?
Yeah. Well, number one is you need to be a good doctor. So never sell that short. You have to be good, and that's gonna give you power to help people. If you're good at what you do, and then just when you're looking for ways to help. The opportunities are countless. Now, you asked me one other thing. Remind me, Priscilla.
Let me unmute her, because I think I need to ask her to unmute herself now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I muted myself. I didn't know I couldn't unmute myself again. More of like, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of your career when you were starting? Like, what do you know now that you would tell your past self at the beginning of your career?
Oh, I was that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a doctor. I was committed, and of course, like most medical students, I only wanted to know what I needed to know for the test. Is that still the way medical students function? Yeah. Don't it was like, no, don't tell me one thing that I don't need to know for the test.
Yes.
Which of course is silly, but no, you want to get experience. You want experiences. Say yes to experiences. I mean, I'm not telling you to go do heroin, but you want experiences that are going to contribute to your life. And it's good to get those experiences in medical school and in your residency, so you're as prepared as you can be when you're out on your own. So yeah, study hard, because the better you are. Now you will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. I had 3 patients in my 31 years. I've had 3 patients die unexpectedly, and I remember those. And you tend to focus on your failures. You could have 99 people happy with you and 1 not, and you focus on that 1. But of course, that's not the way, but now you can read it online, your evaluations. And so yeah, just you want experiences. Get as much experience as you can. How would you answer that, Sandy?
Well, I guess I would say that just being open to what might come your way is really important. When you start off, you may have some very concrete ideas about what you want to do, what kind of specialty you want to pursue, what kind of practice you want to have. And I think it takes courage to change those ideas if you realize that what you thought you wanted to do doesn't suit you. So I think that's important. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, just in response to the question of what can you do as a medical student, when I worked in Puerto Rico over a year ago, I spent one night going out on the street brigades with the Iniciativa Comunitaria. We basically made rounds in a van of places where homeless people congregate, and we did wound care for people on the street. We gave them food. We provided information to them for places to get help if they needed help with things. So a lot of the people who were volunteering with that were medical students and even undergraduate students. So that might be a place to start, because you can mix a little bit of practicing wound care and medicine in with providing help to underserved populations. So I know, with all that being said, you have to be kind to yourself, and you shouldn't stress out if you're not volunteering when you're in the middle of trying to get through medical school. There will be time to do things in the future when you have a little bit more free time. But on the other hand, if you have a free night and you want to go out with the brigades, I'm sure you'd be welcome to do that. And I think Cayetana or Jody, if you message them, they could give you more details about that.
Yeah, they're still doing rounds during COVID. So if you wanna do that, you can send me an email or Dr. Jody, and we can contact you guys with them. There's another question, Reynaldo, I think.
I'm sorry, Sandy. I think you. Oh, I'm sorry, Cayetana. I'm sorry, Reynaldo. Do you mind if I say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry because I had to leave where I was. So Iniciativa Comunitaria has a couple programs. There's Operación Compasión and Punto Fijo. And Sandy and I don't know if Scott, if you were able to, we were able to do it with you when you went. But we did support them in their needle exchange program. So if you really want to get out of your comfort zone and you haven't worked with the homeless population, or you haven't seen certain parts of Puerto Rico, it's a great program. In the South, there's also Dr. Panelli, who works with the homeless. I believe Dr. Torres, and he does similar work there as well. So I would invite all of you to really just talk to your professors and see what other opportunities there are out there And feel free to contact us, because even though we're not currently running Operation Giving Back, we still support those efforts. Either if it's people that are displaced by the earthquakes that need mental health support, or if they're homeless and they just need different types of medical treatment. So I would encourage all of you to do that. And thank you, Scott. You're just amazing and inspirational.
Thank you, Jude.
Hi, Dr.
Yes, hi.
Leckman. Thank you for such a inspiring talk. I had a question regarding, you said you had some time in the USS Pelelu as a future naval officer. Can you give me more about your experience there, and how can you get that as a civilian, and a little bit more information about that?
Yes. So I was a civilian, and I got to be in the Navy for a month. For me, that's ideal. Now it sounds like it'd be more career for you, or at least sometime. So the nice thing about being a volunteer is it's hard to get fired, and you don't have to take orders. So, but you would have to take orders. So on the Pelelu, they had maybe 3 ORs. So, it's a warship. And so it's a very different circumstance than the hospital ships are. Now you're going to be a Navy officer. Do you know how to unmute yourself?
Oh, he's muted. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm in the process of applying to orthopedic surgery.
Okay.
So after that, it happens, and if I get selected, then the timeline goes.
Great.
through.
So I don't know, I know that they'll take interns and stick them on aircraft carriers where you're in charge of taking care of 5,000 people, which seems crazy to me, but I don't know if they do that with you. Yeah, I think if you're doing a residency in orthopedics, then you just you could avoid that kind of thing. I don't know where they'd probably stick you at a base somewhere after you're done with your training. You want to go to San Diego, I think.
Yeah, that's a tough choice.
Yes, yes.
Do we have any more questions? Taylor, unmute you. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Leckman. Thank you
Hi.
for coming to speak with us tonight. This was really inspirational. My question would be, what personal characteristics do you think you possess that contributed to your resiliency to have a full-time professional career, but still devote so much of your time and effort to humanitarian works and efforts?
Ooh. Well, I think being optimistic, and I kind of talked about that. I think that's the biggest thing. Because being a pessimist, well, first of all, who wants to be around pessimists? I mean, they're just a drag. And there's really not a choice. And that's, like that Alex Steffen quote, people who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy for you to think things aren't going to get any better. But things are getting better. But it's not by accident. It's not evolution. Things don't naturally get better. That's what I used to think. But no, it's because people take action. But I think a lot of people want to make things better. And if you organize, then you can make it happen. So I think optimism is maybe the most important thing.
I don't know if anyone else have any other questions, comments, want to say something. Oh, Juan Mendoza, 1 second. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was able to do it. Hi to all. Dr. Leckman, I have a question. How you decide how you choose like the project that you will to 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 help people? How you decide which person you contact and and also like which project you will develop to help people?
Yeah. Well, that first experience, which was fabulous, in Bondouchi, after the tsunami, that was just an email, that kind of just from the American College, letting me know. The hernia, I went looking on the website for, I wanted to do something. So I just went to the website, and there's all sorts of projects, that are looking for volunteers. And I just went through that, and I found Hernia International and emailed them, and it was real easy. And I love doing that. So is there a rhyme or reason? I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I don't know if I've been too strategic. But these are things, I've got some skills. And that's the great thing about being a doctor is you've got skills that are valued all over the world. You will never go lacking for a job, because you're going to be needed somewhere for sure. And I wanted to be a family doc when I entered medical school. So yeah, you can change your mind for sure.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? No? Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you again for your time, for your talk, for your support with this program and with everyone. Dr. Freewald, thank you too for organizing this, and Dr. Torres for spreading the word with your students. If that's all and nobody else have any questions, I will see you. We have another, this is gonna happen every 2 weeks, and we already have the calendar for the rest of the year. So I'm gonna try to prepare a calendar so we can share it with your professors and colleges so you can have it. And I'll send the registration links as we go. So I can send you the Zoom link in advance and you can get that in your calendar. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.